So hello and welcome to this post-introductory part of our series Let's Break Some Sugar. This is the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondrion. This video is meant to talk about the site of occurrence of the cellular respiration, especially the aerobic respiration. आइए बात करते हैं कि हम इस वीडियो में क्या-क्या पढ़ेंगे. We will talk about the organelle itself, that means the mitochondrion. We will talk about its awesomeness with a little bit of history. उसके बाद हम बात करेंगे इसके स्ट्रक्चर की और फाइनली बात करेंगे हम इस स्पेशल ऑर्गेनेल के ओरिजिन की. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द ऑर्गेनेल इटसेल्फ. आपकी स्क्रीन पर दिखाई देने वाली इस पिक्चर को ध्यान से देखिए. वी ऑल नो व्हाट इट इज. इट इज अ टिपिकल यूकैरियोटिक सेल. एंड अगर आप ध्यान से देखें, यू कैन फाइंड आवर ऑर्गेनेल ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. वेयर इट इज, देयर इट इज. दिस इज द माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. आइए इसके हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव के बारे में कुछ बात करते हैं रिगार्डिंग इट्स डिस्कवरी. This specialized awesome organelle was discovered by a German physiologist, Albert von Kolliker, in 1857. Albert von Kolliker के बाद एक जर्मन पैथोलॉजिस्ट जिनका नाम था रिचर्ड एल्टमन, उन्होंने इस ऑर्गेनेल को एक नाम दिया. In 1886, he named them Bioblasts, or literally translated as life germ. 12 years later, after Richard Altman coined the term bioblasts for these organelles, there was a scientist from Berlin. His name was Carl Benda. He was the one who coined the term mitochondria that we use today, which literally translates to the thread granules. Whether you have ever studied biology or not, you may be familiar with the phrase, the powerhouse of the cell. So, the mitochondrion or the mitochondria in plural is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Here is the person who gave the phrase the powerhouse of the cell to mitochondria. He is Philip Schickwitz. Now let us understand that why we call this organelle the powerhouse of the cell. This is called so because it captures glucose and oxygen to generate energy. It captures glucose and oxygen, do its stuff, and produces energy. It produces energy in the form of ATP and packages them, और उन्हें वो अलग-अलग ऑर्गेनेल और अलग-अलग जगह पर भेजता है in order to perform work. So, mitochondrion is called the powerhouse of the cell because energy is generated here. Now, let us talk about its structure. By knowing about the structure of a mitochondrion in detail, enable us to understand most of the complicated processes that are going to come in our future videos with an ease. So, this is important. That's why I have to take my time to explain the structure of the mitochondrion. A mitochondrion is a double membrane bound structure which contains, that means it contains two membranes, obviously. The outer membrane is called outer mitochondrial membrane, I acronized as OMM. The another inner one is called IMM, that means inner mitochondrial membrane. These two membranes are quite different from each other. The OMM or outer mitochondrial membrane is smooth and more permeable to solutes. However, the IMM is not smooth, it is convoluted and it has less permeability for solutes. The inner mitochondrial membrane, as I said, that it is convoluted, it has some infoldings which are called cristae. So, that is all about the outer membranes. Besides the membrane system, it contains a central pulp. That pulp is called the matrix. This pulp contains most of the organelle's important structures. We will talk about in a while. Before that, there is another thing. Outer mitochondrial membrane और inner mitochondrial membrane दोनों के बीच में एक space present रहता है. It is called intermembrane space. This intermembrane space filled with a fluid. The most important part of a mitochondrion is its inner mitochondrial membrane. This inner mitochondrial membrane contains two sides on the basis which side it faces, whether it faces matrix or intermembranous space. So if it faces the matrix, then it is called the N side, and the side of IMM that faces the intermembranous space is called the P side. Remember these two things. इनर माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल मेम्ब्रेन में एक बहुत ही स्पेशल स्ट्रक्चर प्रेजेंट होता है दैट इज यूज्ड टू जनरेट एटीपी एक्चुअली. हम इसके स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे, लेकिन अभी यहाँ सिर्फ हम इसे एज अ स्ट्रक्चर, एज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट स्ट्रक्चर इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं. दिस इज द ऑक्सीजोम्स or the ATP synthase. This is a knob-like structure with an F0 part embedded in the inner mitochondrial membrane and F1 part or knob part towards the N side. Remember, towards the N side, which means towards the matrix or the mitochondrial matrix. Beside all these structures present in the organelle, the matrix contains specialized enzymes. The enzymes that are needed for performing several reactions, जिनके बारे में हम अपनी future videos में detail में बात करेंगे. Now the most of the important things that we are going to study or we are going to talk about are lies in the matrix. The matrix is a central pulp of the mitochondrion. This contains several things. Or listing them in sequence, they are the proteins, as you can see in this picture. Secondly, there are mitochondrial ribosomes, and there are transfer RNAs, and beside all these, they contains multiple segments of circular double-stranded mitochondrial DNAs. Here are all the things that are present inside the matrix of a mitochondrion. This is a list of all the components present inside the matrix of mitochondrion, and here they are shown inside the matrix. Okay, so that was all about the structure of this special organelle. This organelle is also known by another name. इसे powerhouse of the cell तो कहते ही हैं, लेकिन उसके अलावा this is also known as a semi-autonomous organelle. Why it is called so? Because it has its own genetic material. It can make its own copies. That's why it is a semi-autonomous, not totally autonomous, because it cannot survive on its own, but it has all the organelles and especially the genetic material inside it that makes it a semi-autonomous organelle. So finally, let us talk about the origin of this specialized organelle. She is an American evolutionary biologist, Lynn Margulis, who proposed an endosymbiotic hypothesis in 1970. This hypothesis is about the origin of mitochondrion. Currently, this hypothesis has two alternative scenarios. The first scenario is the archaeozoan scenario, and the second is the symbiogenesis hypothesis or symbiogenesis scenario. So let us explain these two alternative scenarios. First is the archaeozoan scenario. It says that there was an ancient, primitive, hypothetical amitochondrial eukaryotic host. That means primitive, पुरातन था, amitochondrial, it doesn't have any mitochondria, और सबसे important, eukaryotic था. That was a host which harbors an proto-mitochondrial endosymbiont. This was an endosymbiont, but it was the proto-mitochondrial. That means this is considered, or this is believed to be as old mitochondrion that stayed inside the host, a mitochondrial eukaryote. Remember that in archaeozoan scenario, both the host as well as the endosymbiont are the eukaryotes. On the complete contrast, in symbiogenesis, which is a single endosymbiotic event, it is believed that there was an archaeal cell that engulfed an alpha protobacterium. Both of these cells were prokaryotes. This is the main difference between the archaeozoan scenario and symbiogenesis hypothesis, that in archaeozoan scenario, we have host as well as endosymbiont, both were eukaryotes, and in symbiogenesis hypothesis, both host as well as the endosymbiont, which was engulfed by that host, are prokaryotes. Okay, although these are mere theories, but they explain the origin of mitochondrion as well as the chloroplast to a quite good extent. These hypotheses are amazing. Why we are talking about this organelle here? We are talking about this organelle here because this is a specialized organelle that plays a host for the cellular respiration. That means most of the processes that are taking place in the cellular respiration, especially the aerobic one, are taking place inside the mitochondrion. There are 3 enzyme catalyzed reactions in the cellular respiration aerobic. First is glycolysis, second is TCA cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle, and finally oxidative phosphorylation. Out of these 3 processes, 2 of the major processes, that means the TCA cycle and the oxidative phosphorylation, occurs here inside the mitochondrion. However, glycolysis occurs outside the mitochondrion in the cytoplasm. And where these processes occurs actually, maybe it's a concern for our next video. So that is all. Please like, share and subscribe this channel. This is the mnemonic. Let's learn together.